And welcome back to the Big Bets on Campus podcast. The Weave is back. Matthew Cox, Kai McKeon, Jim Root, part of the BBOC family here at the Action Network, breaking down the early portion of the week games. You got Stuckey and the boys going to hit the midweek and the weekend coming up later. But our domain are the early weeks, this Monday and Tuesday spots specifically, fellas. We got MLK weekend. Pretty decent slate, actually, for the extended weekend for those of you who will be taking off your day jobs on Monday, and some bonus Ivy League action. We'll get to that a little bit, but the usual six pack of sections, a lot of good power conference games to break down as well. Some favorites, some trash, some dumpster diving, and a little bit of a spotlight at the end on some early conference juggernauts, teams who are absolutely smacking the spread so far in conference play. Do you ride the wave or is it a sell high opportunity? We'll get to all that. First off, folks, let's get to the big games on Monday. Big Monday used to be a thing. So, but unfortunately this week there aren't really no great games. However, Tuesday, big old slate coming to you right off the weekend, right off the holiday. Big Ten, Big East, ACC, even some SEC as well. Wisconsin at UCLA, Texas Tech at Cincinnati, Louisville at SMU. Two fun offenses surging there. Mississippi State at Tennessee, in North Carolina at Wake Forest, battle of Tobacco Road foes all around the country with those. Mr. McKeon, I'll start with you. Any of these five jump out to you? Breakdowns, leans, official plays based on some of the early projections. Again, we'll kind of talk about what we think the market might open at while referencing the Ken Palm baseline. It's just a starting point to see where we can kind of gauge value here.
I'd say the most intriguing game to me personally, for me, is Cincinnati hosting Texas Tech. The Bearcats got a much needed win against Arizona State, controlled that game the entire way, but ended up not even covering, won by 7. Still not sure they're really in the spot they were in the non-con when we thought this team was gonna be awesome in conference play, but they've won 2 in a row now. They've gotten off the schneid. They're 2-4, albeit against the weaker Big 12 foes. With Texas Tech coming in, huge opportunity for them to score a real quality win, get one step closer to the NCAA tournament, bolster that resume. And Texas Tech, of course, coming off that massive Arizona win. I would say this is a very good spot for Cincinnati, but I test right now, Texas Tech's much, much better. I would be curious, Jim, to see how much tax you have to pay to bet the Bearcats because we know the market has loved these home spots all season.
I encourage the market to bet Cincinnati, Kai, because more than just the eye test, Cincinnati is kind of like a nausea pill, the instant nausea. If you watch their offense, they cannot score. I know they got it going a little bit against Arizona State, but I still don't trust that team. Even in a great spot there, I'm probably going to hope Texas Tech gets moving, maybe +2 or something as people look to back the home team. An interesting one to me, Wisconsin, UCLA. Wisconsin has been out in LA already. They just won at USC. Both teams are coming off fantastic performances. UCLA, my goodness, they finally got it right. They demolished Iowa. Matt, that's the performance that Mick Cronin's been waiting to see. That one's a hard stay away for me. I probably am going to stubbornly back Wake Forest, even though UNC's off the loss to Stanford. I think Wake Forest is really rising in league play. They're playing a lot better. They just got a road win at Virginia Tech where they covered. It's kind of a ascension back to preseason expectation where they didn't have the scorching offense that they were hoping to. They didn't get the point guard replacement. Tyler Johnson's not been the efficiency aid that they needed, but they're finding ways to score the ball and they're really defending. And UNC just does not give me warm and fuzzies at all. So I kind of like Wake Forest as a probable about pick 'em in this slate of 5 games.
Yeah, the one I actually like is Tennessee. Tough loss at Vandy. It's just the SEC home courts, by the way, 24-15 against the spread. I believe I have the updated number. Home courts were not great this past weekend. It was kind of a big narrative amongst gambling Twitter sphere. Road teams did very well, a lot of big games. However, the SEC was sort of the exception. We saw your Mizzou Tigers. We saw Florida. We saw a few other teams just really like they played the number ballooned very quickly. I think in a good spot. While KenPom has it -9, which feels like a very, very high number, I do think this is one where I'm going to ignore my numbers and just lay it on the spot. So for this Tuesday collection here, I think that's my only official play. I just want to real quick circle back to Monday. I know we didn't really talk about Villanova, Georgetown, Penn State, Rutgers. Georgetown, obviously, with the Tommy Sorbet, as we call him, injury. We'll see if he plays. I did kind of like Nova. I almost added it as an official play. Not to fly by the Monday games. No take for either of those games. I mean, for either you two.
I did want to include Georgetown in the live dog section, actually, Matthew. If
Okay, we'll get to
Sorber
that in a
is back
second.
in the lineup, of course,
Yep.
that's the biggest caveat in the world. Yeah, actually, I wanted to say I think UNC has a really good chance to beat Wake Forest. I still don't think Wake's very good. They have covered 5 straight games, Wake Forest, but that competition, I mean, that's the dregs of the ACC, and this league is so bad. I think hey, put up or shut up for Wake Forest, I think, in that game for sure. SMU though, Matthew, your Mustangs hosting
Pony
Louisville in the
Express.
ACC as
Choo
well.
choo. Yeah.
Boy, fading Miami's free money. I wish I would have just taken SMU. That was dumb. I should have just taken that game.
Yeah, I'm liking any team total against Miami going
Yeah.
forward. They have given up playing defense, completely given up. The team total, I bet the team total in the SMU Miami game, it was 81. They had, I think, 72 with 12 minutes left in the game or something. It was an easy one. But Matt, why should I not bet the over in Louisville SMU? SMU, if you run with them, they are thrilled. They want to ping pong back and forth. And Louisville will run. It's Pat Kelsey team. That team's going to run. They've got a little bit more depth now with Traore back. Why should I not bet the over there?
Yeah, I mean, every game that they've played that was a normal game, right? Games that weren't against Virginia and games that were not against Duke, in which they were down like 30 points, and Duke was just kind of like bleeding clock and, doing what Shire does sometimes in the second half. They've been super, super high octane shootouts. I agree. I do like that over as well, Jim, with the way, especially if Louisville can start making shots from the outside. They're kind of owed some 3-point shooting regression there. Kind of why I also like Louisville a little bit on the side. And Kai, your point about the Tar Heels, I just don't trust that team right now. I feel like that's sort of an Indiana situation where you have a head coach who's starting to feel a little bit of angst from the fan base, not as much as Woodson is from IU fans. We're not hearing, I don't think, fire Hubert at the Dean Dome quite yet, but certainly another underachieving campaign well underway. Feels like maybe a House of Cards situation, but we shall see.
Good. Listen to us.
Let's go to mid-major breakdowns here. Some fun Ivy League stuff to talk about. Man, Columbia, deja vu of last season with this team, right? Got off to a great non-con start, kind of an analytic darling, brought back the entire band again this season. Lo and behold, here they are at 0-2 in conference play. Now they go to Princeton. So it's kind of like their last leg of this, starting off against the best of the best in the league. Princeton off an absolutely insane win against Dartmouth. Xavier Lee hit a buzzer beater to escape a doom loss there in Hanover. So I kind of like Columbia here, just maybe catching Princeton a little bit sleepy off that win. But again, I just, at this point, Kai, as Columbia proven they can play with anyone in the top of the league. They did cover against Yale, right? Lost by 4, scored 88, but gave up 92 in a 77 possession game. We'll see if Princeton, they can keep pace. I do like the spot, though, for Columbia. That was my one angle here.
Yeah, I bet Columbia against Yale. I got a horrible number, but thankfully it came through. Yeah, they're up 7.
That was like 7 or 8 or
Closed
something?
8.5. I got 7. It was
at home.
I thought it was going to go the other way, so it was a bad play by me. But yeah, they're up 7 in the second half. This Columbia team's still very good. I mean, lost to Cornell and Yale. Not really faulting that too much. Now their schedule is so soft with non-con. Like literally, they have the worst strength of schedule in the country right now per KenPom, which is hard to do. Yeah, Princeton, man, squeaking by both Harvard and Dartmouth. We'll talk about Dartmouth maybe a little bit later. The 5 points, I don't know, Matthew. I can't really back Columbia there. I think it's a pretty short number for a team that I think still in Princeton is the class of the conference right alongside Yale.
I like Princeton. I think they're going to continue to. Hayden Pierce gets healthier and healthier. He had that ankle injury before Christmas, or excuse me, before the new year, that I think may still be limiting him a little bit, but they've still arguably got the best 5-man lineup in the entire conference, despite how well Yale's playing. And Columbia's strength is more like depth, experience. I don't think that really trumps Princeton. I think that's better in the non-con. So I lean towards Princeton there, Maddie. It's not a bet for me, though. Keeping an eye more on some of the other mid-major games this week.
Yeah, and I mean, pretty big development getting Caden Pierce back for Princeton. While Columbia was down, I can't pronounce his name. The guy from Algeria, their big guy, very important. Did not play
something.
Game. Yeah, three named.
Bedry.
Good, thank you. So again, just something to keep track on. I think there's a lot of There are a lot more moving parts with the rosters now. You get more illnesses and more injuries this part of the season. Very annoying to handicap, but worth bringing up. That's why we're here. It's what we're helping you out. We'll go to William and Mary at UNC Wilmington. Kind of a weird game that doesn't feel like a conference game, but the CAA, it's going to be an absolute doozy there at Trask Coliseum, one of the best home courts in mid-major college basketball. Kai, Dan Earl, obviously bringing that Ivy blueprint that worked so brilliantly. Sorry, Brian Earl, that worked that blueprint that worked so brilliantly at Cornell to William and Mary. I think it has definitely caught the league off guard. All the coaches have talked about that. And again, this is another situation where it's the first time a team in the Coastal is seeing this weird style. KenPom has it UNC Wilmington -5. I feel like that's short. I got to think this moves closer to 6 or 7, just with, I think, Wilmington at home. But maybe I'm underestimating the market's respect for Bill and Mary at this point.
Yeah. Hey, AD's out there. Isn't it easy when you hire a good coach? Look at William and Mary. They hired a fantastic coach in Brian Earl, and he's already at the top of the league for a program that has struggled mightily last couple of years. I do think William and Mary's for real. They haven't played the toughest Coastal schedule yet. I mean, they beat Hofstra, they beat Elon. Those two are the better teams in the league. So impressive wins there. Elon shorthanded, but albeit still impressive. UNC Wilmington at home, man. You kind of said it. At Trask, I really like Wilmington in general. I do not like to fade them here. They have lost this year at home. They lost to Towson in the opener of the CAA. But yeah, I'd have a hard time fading them, especially at 5. If it does get up to 7, I'd probably start leaning towards William and Mary. At 5, Matthew, I would lean towards the Seahawks and then sort of getting one at home here, getting closer to the top of the standings.
The schedule that they've had has been so poor. Kai really got ahead of me with Elon being injured, no TK Simpkins in that game. Not the same caliber of Elon team. So I'm not full buyer in William and Mary yet, despite loving their coach, despite kind of being high on them coming into the season, but 5-0 atop the league. I don't see them running away with this title. I think this is where the buck stops, and Wilmington's a decent bet at 5 or 6.
Yeah, again, it's gonna be a price thing for me. Just the fact that they have Bill and Mary played well against the best teams in this league. They've kind of played with their food against the bad teams, as Kai talked about, kind of their weaker schedule. But yeah, this is a bear going into Trask, and the guard laden roster of Wilmington, I think, could be a good thing for them. On Tuesday, a lot to pick from. You guys brought up VCU going to Rhode Island. The Rams have had some injury issues lately after a pretty dominant non-conference, but they're getting healthier. And when David Green plays like a all A10 player, this team looks and feels like a very talented, legit A10 contender. Kai, what's your thoughts here? The Rams just continue to impress me. Their defense is not something I ever want to fade at any point, but I can certainly buy the home hype spot here. A vintage home dog for the Rams.
Which Rams?
10 bout. What? Oh yeah,
Rams?
The blue Rams, the Kingston Rams, not the Richmond Rams.
I think VCU at this point, it's pretty clear they're head and shoulders above the league. Not a team I'm looking to fade in conference play. Rhode Island has been much better this year. Credit to Archie Miller for finally getting this program going. And David Green, we even saw last year how important he was. When he was out, it was a totally different team. I'm still not convinced Rhode Island can play with the big dogs. I understand they beat George Mason, but that's about all they've done in conference play that's really impressed me. I think VCU kind of has its way on the glass, has its way inside. Rhode Island, of course, with David Green back, gets a little bit better in the interior, but still, they've been a sieve so far in A10 play. So I lean towards VCU.
Yeah, stay away for me. I also lean VCU. I have some question marks with Rhode Island's. I mean, even with Green back and playing great, they did not cover at home against Davidson. Maybe there's some look ahead to VCU for them there, but I don't think you should be looking ahead when you're 2-3 in the league and have been awful the last 2 seasons. So yeah, stay away, Matt. Maybe I'll lean to VCU, but I can't quite get there just looking at this matchup.
I mean, the other A10 games on Tuesday, so we have Dayton at Duquesne, we have St. Joe at Davidson, and we have George Mason at St. Bonaventure, which I think we might talk a little bit about later on. But all 3 of those within 2 points in KenPom's projected, and I think the opener will probably veer pretty close to those. So the kind of 3 fun matchups where you sort of have to pick the winner, so to speak. And yet St. Bonnie, who's kind of fading, you have Dayton, who's kind of fading against the surging Dukes in Pittsburgh. You have the surging Patriots off their big win at your what? Oh yeah, no, it's just been. I mean, at St. Joe, I mean, who knows? I mean, they're sort of a Jekyll and Hyde.
I'm just like Dayton's more than kind of fading.
Yeah, they've been disastrous. All right, let's go to the live dogs of the week. Our most prized section, I would say, our proudest section. Although my picks last week stunk. St. Louis,
Oh,
Toledo, losers. But hey, they both did not cover, which is great. If you're gonna bet money line, that's great. You want your team to get absolutely blown out if you lose. That's a better feeling than your team covering and only betting money line, and then you just feel like you have that moment of regret. Uh, let's talk about Georgetown at Nova. Kai, you teased this at the intro, and then Rutgers at Penn State we'll get to as well. Kind of the only two real relevant games on Monday. The status of Tom Sorbet, as we're calling him, huge against Nova, right? A, they looked awful, frankly, against DePaul without him. And then B, Eric Dixon, do you have anyone that can match up with him if he's not in there?
no.
And I don't even think that he can really guard Dixon. Let's be honest. I know he's a really good defender. He's active. He's still a freshman. I mean, Dixon's an absolute man child. Kai, I know you faded Nova with Xavier recently. Are you still looking to fade him here? Yeah, successfully.
If Tommy Sorbet, Matthew, as you call him, if he's in the lineup, I would be looking to take Georgetown. I don't know why I'm on such a Georgetown kick. I took a money line against St. John's and they were up 17. So I really am still smart. Sorry, 15. I was really smarting over that one. I think this team is kind of dangerous. Their defense is actually legit this season under Cooley. Clearly can't score very well, but with Sorber, who I think is like one of the premier big men in the entire country. I do think they have a chance to kind of pop Villanova here, who has looked very good, but still vulnerable as well, right? They blew the Xavier game. They weren't competitive with St. John's, really. They almost lost to Providence at home and probably should have. That's not an impressive effort for me. I still think this Villanova team is kind of who we think they are under Kyle Neptune. So this is if Sorber is in Georgetown, if he's out, absolutely not. Cannot touch the Hoyas. He's very important.
Yeah, you've seen when they've had him, they gave all three top teams in the Big East a real run for their money, two away from home. Like Marquette, UConn, St. John's gave them all a serious game. And then without him, they dropped a game to DePaul at home, who hasn't won a conference game in 2 years. So the swing between team with Sorber and team without is so incredibly massive, especially for their defense. Fifth in the country in 2-point percentage. That is hugely because of Sorber. So if he's not in there, you can't touch him. Dixon probably goes for as many as he wants, picks his number. It just does scare me a little bit that if he's the matchup for Dixon, Dixon can go on the perimeter where he's a 45% three-point shooter on volume, off movement, off the bounce. Maybe PV gets upgraded to that matchup. You give a little more versatility. I don't know. But I would lean Georgetown just because I don't trust Villanova laying points. I think I like Villanova more as a dog, but I'm not gonna touch this game either, Matthew.
Yeah, I think actually an official. I will at Rutgers is the one I'm gonna take here. The price is gonna be real. I think we're gonna get a pretty I guess expensive price. Yeah, Kempom has it. Rutgers +8 at Penn State.
Yeah,
I think it's gonna be closer to like 5, frankly. So your money line value will be 2-1 if you're lucky. But I still think Rutgers wins this game. I know Penn State got healthier with Ace back and Puff Johnson back. But I do think Rutgers has a different ceiling, a higher gear with the Dylan Harper version we've seen lately, right? I mean, it was very obvious how good he looked against UCLA, and very obvious how good he's looked since he got over that illness. I know it's tough, kind of two back-to-back roadies here in the Big Ten. Kind of never easy to win on the road, even at Penn State. I do think Rutgers gets this done, though. Your thoughts?
Yeah, they've been impressive last couple of games. They beat UCLA at home, a game that we thought set up actually really nicely for the Bruins. And then you turn around and beat Nebraska at Nebraska. That's really hard to do. That home court has been immense the last couple of years for the Huskers. So that impressed me. Yeah, Harper and Bailey, of course, they get the press clippings. They've been awesome. But credit to Steve Peikel, man. He's a great coach. He started putting Dylan Grant in the lineup, freshman. He's kind of come out of nowhere and been really solid for them. He's turned to Harper and Bailey as their freshmen, plus Grant, plus Lathan Somerville as freshman as well. And somehow it's working. He's kind of getting the mojo back for this team. They're still their normal Rutgers selves in the glass, at least in Big Ten play. I think they have a real shot to upend a Penn State team who I think is kind of circling, even with Ace Baldwin back in the lineup. They've played some close games, but they've never given me the warm and fuzzies. At 8, of course, I'm taking Rutgers. That will be an official play for me. Again, we expect it to be more closer to 5, 6.
Yeah, what would you take it down to, Kai? I think I'd take Rutgers +6 for sure, probably 5.5. I think they're It just with the lineup changes you mentioned, they just also the role players seem like they're playing with a little more confidence. Like Zach Martini looks like the guy that was on an NCAA tournament team at Princeton instead of like a scared off the bench, am I allowed to shoot or not guy. He's got a little quicker trigger, just the confidence level that matters. Grant has been a huge lift for them. Acuff's been starting but not really contributing. But Matt, as you noted, it all comes down to the number one, Dylan. When Harper plays really well and dices up pick and roll coverage, it's really tough to stop this team. And if Penn State's going to trap or hard hedge on him the way they like to with their turnover defense, he can split that, and suddenly the defense is in a bad spot. I will take Rutgers again down to 5.5. We'll Kyle put it, I don't know, +8 because that's what KenPom has, but we know it won't be there.
Yeah, I agree, Jim. 5.5 is probably the cutoff there. I mean, heck, I consider 5. Honestly, I think it's a really good setup for Rutgers.
Yeah, I think anything lower than that, you're discounting. Penn State's been pretty. I mean, they lost at Michigan State by 5. Like that's Michigan State's been terrific. Like, that's
good effort.
Impressive. It's not. They've not been by no means been like a non-conference paper tiger. I think they've proven they're pretty legit, especially if you factor in the injuries they're dealing with Ace and Puff. All right, on Tuesday. Man, talk about a spot of all spots. West Virginia just, rushed the courts against Country Roads all night long after a huge win against Iowa State. I mean, Darian DeVries is the giant killer of college basketball right now. They get Arizona State coming to town, who I can guarantee you no one is taking seriously. We'll see what the number comes in. I mean, KenPom's numbers with West Virginia are still pretty muted. Like, you're not going to get any great value backing Arizona State as a dog here. KenPom has it 7, Kai. I'm not touching this one. The other one we talked about was Indiana State going to Illinois State in the Missouri Valley. Very high variance team are the Sycamores. They might just be bad at this point with how crappy their defense has looked. Gave up $1 million to Bradley and gave up $1 million to Drake, adjusted for tempo, obviously. So that's where you got to. That's my only concern with this team. But Illinois State has been a feast or famine team all year as well. I think Chase Walker had like 40 and 20, so I'm not touching that one. Kai, thoughts on these two games? I do have one I will officially add for Tuesday, but I'll save it for after you break down these two or any others that you're officially looking at for the Moneyline Doggies.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a swing at the 6, Indiana State, and I've been fading this team all season, so this is kind of like a playback for me, I suppose. Yeah, defense is bad, but they are such a high variance team because of how many threes they shoot. They get up threes at the 5th highest rate in the country. Over 51% of their shots are from 3, and in conference play, it's really down right now. Their percentage, they're 30% from 3 in conference play. That's dead last in the Valley. I think that ticks back up. I don't like this team on the whole, but they do have shooters. They do have capable shooters. Now, Illinois State, that's a team you just can't really trust. They've lost to Evansville by 18 at one point. Certainly better at home, and Valley home you have to respect, but I think Indiana State can get it done. I'm taking them on the spread. I would swing a little bit on the money line there since it is the live dog section. As far as West Virginia goes, Jim, number 1 home court advantage in KenPom. I just think it's a really good spot for Arizona State. I really lean towards the Sun Devils here. Kind of hoping West Virginia takes money, maybe get a little better price on Arizona State. And I'm looking at them on the spread as the dog there.
Yeah, I'm going to back them on the spread at 7. I'm sucker for the spot here. Arizona State's travel isn't bad at all. They're just coming from Cincinnati. It's not flying all the way across the country like you might expect. And West Virginia coming off a top 5 home win, Country Roads screaming it after the game, knocking off Iowa State. I even with Jozan Sannon's status up in the air for ASU, I think there's enough there, Matt. I'm going to take the +7. I backed him 10.5 at Cincinnati. I'll take 7 at West Virginia.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass. Arizona State. I know they kind of scummy to cover at Cincinnati, but this is a similar type of matchup where just a really rugged defense and that offense can go through huge scoring droughts. Especially if Sannon's not in there, he's kind of the key to their offense in many regards. However, I think Arizona State's defense is underrated and kind of helps you as that dog in that dog profile. So yeah, let's move to. Oh, sorry, my the one I wanted to bring up here, Hail Mary. UCF goes to Iowa State, guys. This is not really a great spot on Tuesday. Iowa State just lost. UCF just lost a heartbreaker at home to Houston. But I'm looking at UCF's road performance so far. They won at Texas Tech. Pretty tough place to win, we just say, right? They covered at Arizona. And I think we just saw them play Houston very competitively after beating Arizona State on the road, too. Like, this team's kind of good. And I'm not saying they're going to beat Iowa State. They're talented. Their freshman, Thiam, is a beastly shot blocker. They're sort of a tough prep because of their new renovated offense. I think Iowa State could win this game by 40, clearly. But you want to talk about variance and a potential like massive, massive payday money line. I'm going to add UCF to the watch list, not an official play, but one where I'll come back and gloat about it next week if it hits. And then if it loses, I'll just say, hey, I just warned you. It's a watch list play, not an official play. So take that for what it's worth. We move along to the favorites. Yeah, last week we talked about Duke against Miami, and I think the ACC might be a conference we target for this section. There seems like this developing haves and haves nots. Like the bottom chunk of this conference is terrible. A lot of just bad teams with no hope. But some mid-major opportunities here as well. You guys highlighted Colgate and Bucknell out of the Patriot. And then McNeese, the Southland wagon against SFA, who used to be a Southland wagon, but no longer. The fact that KenPom has that as a 15-point projection says all you need to know about A, how good McNeese is, and B, how down in the dumps SFA is. Kyle, go to you here. You like both the favorites on these two?
Yeah, I mean a little less on McNeese just because I've been high on SFA all year because I just can't possibly believe how bad this team is, but they really are. They really are. I've backed them too much. I paid the price for it. Stubbornly keep bashing my head against the wall. But look, they're 1-6 in the Southland. They've lost to Incarnate Word, Houston Christian, and Selah, and UT Real. They've lost to everybody. This team is one of the biggest lopsided lovelies in the sport. Really good defense. The worst offense in history. I mean, they're below 23% from three. That's the worst in the country. They're bad. So I would lean towards McNeese. I really like Colgate. This team is clearly the class of the Patriot again. I am like kicking myself to the moon that I didn't take them against Lafayette. That was probably the easiest bet of the entire season, Jim. So Colgate, I would definitely lean against Bucknell. Actually, I'm taking Colgate for the show, -5.
Yeah, I'm betting Colgate 5 too. It seems like the market is like, yeah, this is who Colgate is, as they continually way outperform. Not they've got Woodward back and they got Jalen Cox back over the weekend too, with their best guard. You add it all together, and Langle's prep and his familiarity with all these foes in the Patriot League, he just kind of owns all of them. So I'm going to continue to ride the toothpaste Colgate train with you. I don't have much of a take on the other one, Matt, but give me Colgate.
I'll give you one off the screen here, off the board. I'm going to take Akron, the Zippity Doodahs, going on the road to Buffalo. And this is Tuesday, so I'm jumping. We'll talk about Tuesday here in a second. I'm jumping the gun, but I had this written down on my sheet here. I forgot to bring it up. They go to Buffalo. Akron has been awesome. Like, I think better than most people expected, given they, as John Gross told me this summer, they dubbed last year as the last dance. I really thought this would be a down season. And lo and behold, they're 12-5 overall, 5-0 in the league, 115th in KenPom. Yes, it is a watered down MAC team. I think they're going to absolutely just steamroll Buffalo on the road at Buffalo. They get an extra day off to prep. Buffalo just won a big roadie, fluky, I think, at Western Michigan, a team that doesn't defend anything. So I think Akron wins by 2 touchdowns at least. Hopefully that spread is under 14. KenPom has it 12. So official play for me there, just a real quick insertion. Tuesday, other games we had on the list. Creighton at DePaul. We'll see what the number is here, Jim, after DePaul got that huge win at Georgetown, shorthanded Georgetown. But the Jays, off their UConn victory, kind of have Dan Hurley's number a little bit. Do you think they keep it going there against a brittle DePaul team in Chicago?
Yeah, you could see a little letdown from DePaul, but DePaul's just kind of like a feisty group. Like Enright kind of embodies who they are, just gets under your skin. He's always playing hard. Maybe getting a little more out of Skogman now. He had been a shell of himself since he returned from injury, and much better there. But yeah, Creighton is really rolling, and this isn't a road environment where you're scared of the young role players.
No.
And they already just played well at UConn. I think they can play well at DePaul. But McAndrew and Kai, Jemiah Neal's good at basketball now.
Yeah,
we just have to process that, I guess.
He's doing well, Jim. Any given night, he can hit 7 threes, but he can also miss 7 threes, I guess. I think you're getting a cheap price. If it is Creighton -5 at DePaul, I think you're getting a cheap price. I still think that this DePaul team just isn't quite where we hoped they would be at this point. They're still outside the top 100, and that's kind of what they are. Creighton, you said it, 5-1 in the Big East and looking better and better every single game. So I do lean pretty hard to Creighton there in that spot. Yeah, DePaul won the first Big East game in 100 years against Georgetown. They're riding high.
Yeah. Georgetown without Sorber.
Without Sorber, by the way.
Yeah.
And Epps as well. No, that team looked different without those guys. All right, last one you guys written down here. Utah against Houston. I've been cooler on the Cougs. mostly wrong about that take, although obviously they just want a buzzer beater barn burner at UCF, but I'm not going to gloat about that. Now kind of get the Utes, who in my opinion are categorically less athletic, off a big win against their holy war rival BYU. I'm with you guys. I assume you're looking to lay Houston here. I'm not going to make an official play, but it's the first time I think I've agreed with your Houston leans all season on this program. Minus 18 per KenPom.
I don't think I'll lay it. I think it's pretty big, but I still think Houston is, they're number one in offense and defense in the Big 12. They are a juggernaut. UCF played the best half they can possibly play in the first half, and Houston still beat them. And the refs were horrible in that game, and Houston still beat them. This team is still scary good.
Yeah, Tugler got a technical like right away. The second foul, Tugler doesn't play the entire first half. The best defender on the best defense. Suddenly, Houston looks a little bit mortal. They did come back and win. The big part of this, Matt, I think, is the other side of it. Utah coming off OT win against BYU, major rivalry, the Holy War.
Yep.
You could see Utah going to Houston and be like, if we get punched in the mouth early, we don't need to stick around for this. I'm not going to lay it either because the variance in these big favorites in conference, like I don't know, is this going to be 18? Is it going to be 20? I don't know what the spread will be if you get a spot tax on it. But I just wanted to note that for people, Utah going to Houston after a giant home rivalry win could be a sleepy effort.
Matt, Utah has lost by 25 to Baylor, 28 to Texas Tech, and 23 to Iowa State. They might just get blown out by really good teams.
Yeah. This is not the Pac-12. Sorry, Craig Smith. We've kind of already bled into the spot section, but let's just go right into it. We haven't been great at this section, as we sort of mentioned. Some of the spots are just tougher in conference play, right? It's just more rigid, consistent schedules. And honestly, a lot of the cliche perceived spots in quotation aren't as good as they used to be. I just think there's more of a different dynamics out there. The market overbets them. You don't always get good value on them. Like we talked about, Marquette hit a great spot, but they've kind of been in cruise control in the Big East. They barely survived last night. K-State we talked about last week as well. They did cover, and then Mississippi State not even close. Again, not great at this section. So take all of our takes here with a big fat grain of salt. We've talked about some spots earlier, a few others to dive into. We did mention the DePaul Creighton breakdown. How about Cincinnati at home against Texas Tech? I just do not trust this Bearcat team. Obviously, you're playing Texas Tech off their huge win, and you kind of have that Cincinnati desperation factor, Kai. Bearcats, again, until this team can score points like at a semi-consistent rate, I'm just not backing them. That's where
we touched them already in the big game section, but I don't know. The spot sets up very nicely for Cincinnati. If you're a spot better, I think you're going to probably play that, and I think the market will probably bet that as well. Like you said, they have been overbetting these spots. Anecdotally, it seems like the spots are doing pretty well this year, but evidence, I guess.
We're picking the wrong ones, I guess. Yeah,
I think it's more 50-50. It's kind of in your head, to be frank. But Texas Tech was way better on the eye test. We talked about it. Yeah, I'm probably staying away this one.
Yeah, I like I said earlier, I want there to be a lot of steam for Cincy, and I can get a couple of points with Texas Tech on the road. I fully acknowledge that the spot is all Bearcats and respect people betting that, but I just think Cincinnati's circling the drain a little bit, and Texas Tech is legitimately very good, and their wins are going to start to catch up with their analytical profile.
And we talked about some of the Ivy oddities in the schedule. Yale versus Dartmouth, and there's a couple other that do this Saturday, Monday. Mike Martin of Brown talked about how odd this was. Like, for example, they played at home against Harvard. They just got killed, by the way, at home against Harvard. Now they have to go up to Ithaca. That's a tough prep and travel on a short turnaround to go to Cornell, upstate New York, and play a very, very intricate system. Now, again, the Ivies know that system pretty well. It's why we've seen Cornell kind of flatline the last couple of years in conference play relative to non-con. But Dartmouth, Yale here, Kai, I mean, I think Dartmouth might just be undervalued at this point. They've been playing very competitively. They've gotten a little healthier. And while I think Yale has had a propensity to blow out the dregs of the league the last couple of seasons, I don't think Dartmouth's in that. I think Dartmouth's actually a real team that if you're getting 15, that feels kind of high. So that's a spot for me with Dartmouth, I think.
I think Dartmouth, they have been a lot better. By the way, Ithaca's in like middle of New York. It's not upstate. It's like west. It's like middle of the state.
It's a long trip. Why are we don't belabor this? It's a long trip. It's like a 4 hour.
I don't want. There's a lot of East Coast listeners. I don't want.
They're going to get pissed off about. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Dartmouth, man. Played Princeton tough. They've had some impressive efforts this year, but I actually like Yale in this game, lean that way. It's huge. It's a huge spread for the Ivy League. So I give you that. I do think Yale is the best team in this conference. Now, what we've seen with Princeton, and this is Dartmouth's first trip on the road. Granted, they've done okay in past games, and they beat Boston College on the road, but I still think it's a lot different team away from home. And yeah, like I said, man, I just need a double over everybody in talent. Maybe the exception of Princeton. So I lean towards Yale, not an official play.
Yeah, I have the perception that Yale's like, it's tough to blow teams out in the Ivy, like the double-digit spreads. You want to lean towards the dogs. But looking back at Yale's history, I mean, they just blew up Brown by 20 as a 10-point favorite. Last year, they beat Harvard by 20 as an 11-point favorite. They beat Dartmouth by 24 as a 20-point favorite. Beat Penn by 16 as a 13.5-point favorite. Beat Dartmouth by 25 as a 12.5 road favorite. Like, so they've actually been really good in these the big favorite spots against Ivy League opponents. So I'm going to stay away, Matt. I think it's kind of a conflict between how good I think Yale is and how the spot sets up for Dartmouth.
Yeah, there was a long-standing trend, I think, betting like large dogs in the Ivy was a pretty good bet for a while. But last year, I think, in the last 2 years, maybe that's sort of gone out the window. I think the gap between the haves and the have-nots has grown, and Yale's athleticism and depth that just overwhelms some of these teams. But again, I think Dartmouth's better this year. So, and then maybe the spot of the week here, Vandy, Alabama. I guess Alabama did win, right? They just won at, or sorry, yeah, well, this is why it's a spot of the week, right? They won at Kentucky. So a letdown spot here, but Vandy, maybe you would argue had they lost, that could be a better spot. But I kind of like the angle of like, hey, off that huge win, maybe they're just going to ride that mojo into another big effort against Bama coming in, getting a pretty big number. I would assume they're going to be laying or catching double digits here. Kai, what's your thought here for the Byingtons versus the Crimson?
I don't have a lot of thoughts here on this one. I think the spread's probably going to be pretty fair. I would lean towards Alabama, if anything. Yeah, Vanderbilt home run effort against Tennessee. Uh, we just haven't seen them win these big games normally this season. I mean, every team they've played inside top 75 or so, they've either lost or they've struggled with outside of the Tennessee game. So I think this Vanderbilt team is very good. I just don't think they are elite quite yet, especially in a road environment after that home win against Tennessee. I would lean pretty heavily towards Bama, but no play though.
Yeah, I'm going to lay it, Matt. I'm looking at the spot the other way, where team gets huge home win against rival, that's Vandy, now goes on the road. I think that's more prone to a letdown than Alabama gets road win, now comes back home. And
Yep,
against an
that's fair.
inferior team. I think Bama also showed against Kentucky's very shaky defense a lot more of the spurtability that last year's team had. They had a couple different 10-0 runs in that game that was like, oh, yes, Bama has the kind of electric perimeter attack. And Youngblood hit a couple big shots, Matt. We were looking for him to get more into that rotation. So I'm going to lay it with Bama minus 13. I'd probably take up to 14 there.
All right, let's take out the trash here quickly. It's smelly this week, so I don't want to hold it very long. We have some Maction. That's single A Maction for those of you keeping tabs at home. A few teams here in this conference, we've been questioning, are they really trying to win this season? They've been trying to, or maybe trying to not cover, wink, wink. Northern Illinois at Western Michigan. Now, Northern Illinois has been downright terrible. Like, I think the worst team in the conference, bar none. And there have been some bad teams here. Western Michigan, their last few defensive efforts make me question how much they're really dialing in on that side of the ball here. I can't imagine the Broncos laying 10. They just gave up 85 to Buffalo. They did beat Kent State at Kent State, a result that will never make sense to me. They won 94-83. Still gave up 83 against a Kent State team that's a little grittier. Gave up 91 to Miami. Gave up 83 to Bowling Green. I don't know, Kai. Northern Illinois, can they score 70? Ken Pom has it 79-69 in this game. I went all over the map here. I like the over in this game. So I guess this sort of goes against the trash premise here. I think this actually ends up being prettier trash than most trash.
This is just a trash league, the MAC
It
this
is.
season. I'm also brutal at betting this league outside of Toledo games. I think Toledo games done pretty well. The other games, horrible. I would suggest fading the bottom of the conference and then doing that and not bet Bowling Green. That's the exception there, as they lost outright to Eastern Michigan somehow. NIU is horrible. I'm of two mindsets here. NIU is one of the worst teams in the country. Western Michigan should not be laying 10 to anybody. So in that sense, I lean towards the dog, but I don't know if I have the stones taken. And again, this is like the worst conference in America to bet right now.
Yeah, Matt, I'm going to go with you on the over. Big reason being Chancey Willis, the point guard for Western Michigan. Since he's been in the lineup, they're definitely playing faster. Per CBB Analytics, our pals, Western Michigan playing 6 possessions faster when Willis is on the court. That's in the 99th percentile in the country. He really gets them going. And I think Northern Illinois is a happy participant in that. So I think this turns into a track meet. I like your over angle.
So last year the MAC was 25th in tempo of all conferences. This year it's second. So just for context of how quickly this league has
Gas pedal.
shifted. And yeah, Willis, big part of that, Jim, but also I think a function of the competition. I mean, even teams like, Kent State's kind of, we've seen them get out in track meets before, and I'd argue that they probably don't want to. It's probably like Rob Senderoff so pissed off. He's like, we can't get caught up. Like, let's do what we do. So yeah, weird league this year. No other trash. Let's do a quick spotlight. Conference juggernauts. And of course, we wouldn't have it any other way if we wouldn't start out with your Missouri Tigers 5-0 against the spread in the Southeastern Conference. A dominant win over your quasi-rival Arkansas. We call it a rival. Yeah, for sure. They play Tuesday. They're at Texas. Rodney Terry. Man, it could be a low number. We'll see what it looks like. But Mizzou, and let's talk about the other guys who are undefeated so far in conference play against the number. So 5-0 Mizzou, UAB is 5-0. They've been dominant in the American despite their second half woes. LIU, for those of you betting the extra board, NEC, well-coached team. They've been kind of good against the Northeasterners up there. Miami O, my boys, Travis Steele and company, 5-0 against the Trash Mac, as we just discussed. UC Irvine, they're not playing Monday, Tuesday, but they're 7-0 against the spread. I just want to bring them up real quick. Before I go there, how about Mizzou, UAB, Miami? All three of these teams playing Tuesday, undefeated. Kai, ride wave or sell high or pass? I think I'm passing.
I'm just too biased towards Tigers in a bad way, I suppose, because 2 seems short for, hey, you talk about spots. This is a great spot for Texas. Off the Florida loss, off 2 straight away games. You're coming back home. You're getting a Missouri team that, while very good, is one of the SEC teams you can pick off and beat, especially on your home floor. Texas is 1-4 in the league. Mizzou's 4-1 in the league. I think Texas, with its back against the wall, is the better play. Having said that, I've watched both these teams, Jim, and I think Mizzou's the better team. So I understand where why the spread will be 2-3. It'll be bet towards Texas, I bet. But I would lean towards the Longhorns.
I've been trying to listen to people that aren't Mizzou fans and how they talk about the Tigers because I realize my eyes don't see the same things. I'm a little more biased. I watch every game, etc. Some people that I respect are like, this team's really good. And yeah. I agree with that. They're very versatile. They've got a lot of positionless type of guys that can spread you out and attack mismatches. They've got some shooting. They can play different kinds of lineups. So, Matt, I would lean towards Mizzou there, but I don't trust UAB to lay double digits. I'm not going to go there. I kind of trust Miami of Ohio because of the offense. I think they can really score and cover as a big favorite, but we just got finished saying betting the MAC is a scary proposition. So I will leave that alone out of respect for the insanity that is that conference.
Oh, but fading Bowling Green is a good idea. So I do lean towards Miami of Ohio.
Okay, there you go.
Bowling Green is horrible.
I know. I still think there's an uptick coming from my Falcons, but they've just been too hurt this year. They have no bodies. I love the Red Hawks. I'm not laying that. The one I am going to lay though is UAB. This will be my other official play, but it's going to be first half for me. I'm going to continue to attack the UAB first half.
Smart. Getting it out with me with UAB.
Yeah, and the Roadrunners have been terrible in the first half. They've been like okay so far. In second half, we saw them. I think the St. Mary's game's like the one that comes to mind, right? They were down 18 and came all the way back at St. Mary's to tie. They had a couple of other kind of comebacky efforts. Just kind of a discombobulated operation right now with all the new pieces that Austin Kloss is integrating. So UAB first half, riding the conference juggernaut wave. Fellas, let's recap our picks for the week. And before we do, I'll just lead off here because I had the absolute worst week of any of us last week. So I just want to kind of own this off the dome here. Yeah, 0-4, I think last week was my official record for official plays. So either that's a do theory, a bounce back this week for me. That's what I'd like to implore you.
Hey, but 2 of them were big plus money dogs, Matt. 2 of them are big plus money dogs.
Yeah, I know, but they weren't even competitive though. So I feel like it's a combination of losses. Like they just were non-competitive games. All right, I got Rutgers money line. Talked about that earlier. Not going to be a great price again, but still, I think that's a game they win. And then Akron mentioned in the favorite section going to Buffalo. Hopefully can catch less than 2 touchdowns, keeping it tight. keeping it conservative off a disaster week. Kai, to you for your slate this week.
Yeah, I see I went 4-1 last week. That's great. Good for Kai. I did not take Morgan State, who won outright. That was a mistake on the show. Wilmington, I'm taking them against William & Mary. I'm taking the SMU Louisville over. Rutgers on the spread. Indiana State spread against Illinois State and a little money line sprinkle. Arizona State spread against West Virginia. Colgate taking them against Bucknell. And I like Matt's UAB first half angle. I'm surprised he's not officially playing that one.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I am playing that.
in.
That's my other. Thank you. I have 3 plays.
UAB first half. I like it as well. Yes.
I can't quit Wake, fellas. Winston-Salem Wake. I'm going back to the well there. +1 is what it is in KenPom, but I would take it to -2, depending on where that line goes. So Wake Forest. I'm also taking the SMU Louisville over. I'd take it up to 160 because I could see that getting bet up given the nature of both teams. Rutgers +8, but down to +5.5. Arizona State +7 in that spot at West Va. Colgate -5. Keep riding the Raiders and laying it with Bama -13 against the Commodores of Vanderbilt. That's it for me, Matthew.
Beautiful, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Same time next week, we'll be coming at you again. Monday, Tuesday is what we own. Make sure to check out the rest of the BBOC pods with Stuckey and company, breaking down the midweek and the weekend slate around the clock, around the calendar college hoops now, as college football moves to our rear view. The NFL hopefully will be there very shortly. And then our sport shines the brightest. Again, thank you for subscribing. BBOC, come back again, same time next week. From Matthew Cox and the rest of the Weavers, we are out. Cheers.